I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Personally, I like it, the way he talked, because it's straightforward.
Let's face it, Trump has effectively helped to wipe the Republican Party out.
I think Abby has really reinvented, for me personally, what a politician should look like.
Nick's mom is, he gets his brain from his mom, I really think.
What LeVar loves is helping people.
This mayor's had 3 police chiefs in 1 week. 3 in 1 week.
What they did to Congressman Denver Riggleman was awful.
The only reason I'm here, right, and I'm not running is because I officiated a same-sex wedding.
They felt somewhat betrayed.
And you have an historic and truly remarkable election.
You can't tell the story of 2020 without first reflecting on 2019. Scandal rocked Capitol Square when a racist yearbook photo threatened to end the political career of Governor Ralph Northam. Just days later, the lieutenant governor was accused of sexual assault. Then the attorney general admitted to once dressing in blackface. There were calls for resignations and investigations. Things looked bleak for Virginia Democrats. But by the end of the year, the party had actually grown stronger, even taking over the General Assembly. And those controversies appear to have had no impact on any of the 2020 campaigns.
That photo and the racist and offensive attitudes it represents does not reflect that person I am today. But I accept responsibility for my past actions, and I am ready to do the hard work of regaining your trust.
You know, I think when you go back and think about what happened in such a short period of time, you know, in the Capitol, you know, down in Richmond, you kind of like think, you know, what in the world, you know, was going on?
Well, I think it's pretty shameful that all 3 Democrats who hold statewide office were called on by their own party members to step down, and now they're still in office.
I think the governor missed the mark on the opportunity to step down.
If this is Ralph Northam, which I hope and pray it is not, but if this is Ralph Northam, he should resign.
It's not the Ralph Northam that I know of, that I've known for the past several years.
I didn't call for his resignation. I did say, however, after looking at his pitiful press conference afterwards, that he should know what he needs to do.
I mean, I actually defended the governor. I mean, not that I think it's okay to be in blackface, but it did happen decades ago, until he started, let's be honest, lying about it, until he told one story, then switched his story.
When I was confronted with the images yesterday, I was appalled that they appeared on my page. But I believe then and now that I am not either of the people in that photo.
What did he do? He admitted it was he. Then he said, well, wait a minute, maybe it wasn't me.
Well, it's not me, and it was horrific, and the fact that it was on my page was just unacceptable, and I felt the need, as did my staff, to reach out and apologize to these folks.
I'm gonna have an investigation. So he's had 2 investigations. And what did he say as a result of that? Inconclusive as to whether it was me or not. That's not good enough for me.
Until he practically moonwalked and embarrassed the whole state on television.
You have a governor that thinks he's Michael Jackson. Remember, his wife saved him.
Both of them are wrong, but there's a contrast between the blackface and someone standing there in a Ku Klux Klan outfit and me dressed up in a Michael Jackson costume for a dance contest.
I gotta believe that there are a lot of Democrats who are still seething at what Ralph Northam has done. But when you've got control of the House and the Senate, and you have a Republican governor, lieutenant governor, and an attorney general who back you up in court, you really have the best scenario politically, even if you've got very flawed people in those roles.
And so I think the leadership is gone. And and I've asked this question on several occasions. No Democrat can be elected governor in this state without strong, massive turnout and support of the black community. If you notice, I didn't say minority community, the black community. No one disagrees with that. Well, if you agree with that, then what are you going to do about it?
You know, it's interesting because we did a number of protests in Richmond, and our focus for the protest was racism and infanticide, because as a faith-based organization, we kind of start with this idea that all of us are created in the image and likeness of God.
So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
When that came out, our protest specifically was with people on the right and people on the left together, saying that we denounce both racism and infanticide. To think that, you know, a sitting governor who is also a doctor would even come close to suggesting that a child who is born after an abortion should not get medical treatment. It was bizarre to me.
I regret that those comments have been mischaracterized. The personal insults toward me, I really find disgusting.
People don't remember scandals for as long or as intensely as they once did. I kid that it's a bipartisan Clinton-Trump era. Bill Clinton and Donald Trump pretty much eliminated sex as an issue, and lots of other candidates have eliminated other things. And people have begun to put scandal in perspective, and they consider it as a part of the whole, a piece of the puzzle.
It looks like that we have moved beyond that, and my hope is for a better Virginia.
So I was told not to go for Virginia. We did really well last time, and I never came, I never did anything, and we did really well. I said, why didn't I go for Virginia? This is the most important election in the history of our country.
For the first time since 2016, Donald J. Trump is on the ballot. Polls show the president trailing Joe Biden here in the Commonwealth, a state that was once reliably red. Still, Mr. Trump says that Virginia is in play.
We're going to put a heavy play in Virginia, and I think we can win the state.
Trump says a lot of things. Trump says a lot of things. It's not in play. It's ridiculous.
Critics say the 45th president has fractured the country like few before him, and that he has encouraged hatred and division. Supporters say he's been the one that's unfairly treated by the media and the Washington establishment. One thing is certain, his presence is felt up and down the ticket.
You have to talk to the people in the campaign who make the decisions, but don't pay that much attention to whatever Trump says at a rally. And they will tell you this is one of the last places that they will spend money, in part because they're being outspent so heavily by Joe Biden in places they need to win, like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida.
The stakes in Virginia, we're going to win the presidential. I mean, Joe Biden's been up double digits, but we're running like we're 20 points down. If you look at the early vote, 1.6 million already.
You know, I was shocked in 2016, quite honestly, at the rise of President Trump, at the time, candidate Trump.
Donald Trump can still win this election. Don't ask me how, but stranger things have happened.
There's not going to be a President Donald Trump. That's not going to happen.
Donald Trump will not become president.
He is not, Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States. Take it to the bank. Okay. I guarantee it.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
And we better be ready for the fact that he might be leading the Republican ticket next.
I know you don't believe that, but I want to go on to Matthew Dowd.
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
You know, I remember, very vividly that election eve and then the next day. There were a lot of people that were laughing beforehand and some people that were crying afterwards.
And by the way, people laughing at you or celebrities coming out or media against a candidate doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Trust me. Endorsements don't matter. None of that matters. What matters is you going to the people working hard.
I think that 2020 is a change election. 2016 was not necessarily, because Obama had been president for 8 years and the seat was in essence open. So the sitting vice president at the time, Joe Biden, did not seek the nomination, so it was a bit of a different. It wasn't a referendum then on Obama's administration. In this instance, this is definitely a referendum on the last 4 years.
I've never seen a figure exert so much downward pressure on his own party as President Trump.
Well, the Republican Party has to change something because they're doing miserably. They haven't won statewide since 2009. They've lost everything, even the General Assembly.
We now have, when Donald Trump took office, and this is important, in January 2017, Virginia had probably one of the states with the least amount of women elected in our legislature. We had only one congresswoman in Barbara Comstock. Fast forward 4 years later, we have 3 Democrat congresswomen. We have a woman Speaker of the House, a woman Majority Leader. Donald Trump helped to do that.
If you think about the message that Donald Trump has used to his effect around the country, it's that he's going to drain the swamp in Washington. That doesn't work in Fairfax County. That doesn't work in Prince William County. It doesn't work in Arlington and Alexandria. In fact, it makes things worse for Republicans.
I think that this is an anti-Trump vote, 100% anti-Trump. And in the Commonwealth of Virginia, let's face it, Trump has effectively helped to wipe the Republican Party out.
The only thing surprising about him is the fact that, he keeps surprising us.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
That scared me to death. It should scare you too.
Well, I was just talking to my mom how Trump acts like my 7-year-old daughter. There's a lot of tantrums, a lot of, if it's not her way, she flips the table over. I would like a president that's a little bit more mature than my 7-year-old.
Oh, we talk about, why is he talk like that? A little bit maybe toned down. But personally, I like it, the way he talk, because it's straightforward, it's just truth.
I really think objectively, taking the personality out of it, which can be a turnoff, the guy delivered for most Americans. Conservative, liberal, white, black, young, old. I feel like he came through for us.
He didn't really have a record to run on, and so I was very skeptical. But after seeing over the last 4 years some of the things that he's done, and let's face it, he didn't campaign on criminal justice reform, but yet he's really used his political power to help even against some people in his own party, whether it is the Platinum Plan that emphasizes $500 billion of investment to go into black communities, or the 500,000 new African American jobs. He was largely unfamiliar, quite honestly, with historically black colleges and universities, and we have several of them in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but he made sure that those schools would get funding and made that funding permanent.
To the extent that Trump has done anything to advance the cause and to advance the accreditations as well as the monies for historical black colleges and universities, it's more than Obama ever did. Yes, there are some people who are here. Will that be enough people to allow that to offset their other disdain for Trump to vote for him? I don't know that that's the case.
I think he re-engaged people to realize what happens when you don't vote. Look at what he did for women, in the sense of women woke up and said, what? Hillary didn't win this election?
Hey, hey, ho, ho! Donald Trump has got to go! Not my president! Not my president!
If the ground would open up and swallow Donald Trump tomorrow, the problems of the nation are still here. Somebody's got to resolve them and solve them.
While the presidential race gets the bulk of national attention, there are elections taking place that are much more likely to impact our day-to-day lives. 108 miles south of the White House, Richmond City Hall. It overlooks a city that saw countless protests, the removal of Confederate monuments, and clashes between demonstrators and police in 2020.
We meet force with force. I apologize for that. It should have never happened.
We don't want an apology. We want your resignation today.
Today marks the start of something new. Richmond, you are my family, and this is our home.
LeVar represents the next generation of leaders.
He's a young person, a young man, and well educated.
Yeah, he can fix all the problems.
Look at me. You know what to see. You see a bad mother.
I know we're sitting here and asking you to look into your crystal ball, but if you could write a headline at the end of 2018 for LeVar Stoney in the city of Richmond, what would that be?
I would say confidence restored.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years have been really problematic for Mayor Stoney. He has not had the successes that I think he was counting on to offer as, a feather in his cap.
Mayor, you said that you were not going to raise taxes when you ran for mayor. How could you stand up here before all of us and do this to the people?
It's going to be all about him. I don't even know that the other person matters. I see it as either a pro-Stoney vote or an against him. And I really think it's a him against him in this case, and I think that Ms. Gray may be able to exploit some of that, the feeling. I watched a couple interviews that were, I thought, really telling about people who lived through the protest down there in the fan and how it really affected them. Some people even moved out.
Part of leadership, in your office, you've got good days, you've got bad days. You just keep moving forward, trying to move your city forward, but that was very unique circumstances we had. I thought he did an excellent job. He had to change the leadership of the chief of police.
Police chief shuffle is a, prime proof of absolute lack of leadership. That wouldn't have happened. I don't think that would happen on Doug Wilder's watch. I know it wouldn't have happened on Robert Bob's watch.
This mayor's had 3 police chiefs in 1 week. You saw it right here. I don't have to tell you. 3 in 1 week. How do you do that?
I requested Chief Smith's resignation, and he has tendered.
And we didn't ask for any of this, including me being here.
I am excited about the fact that we will have a new chief in Chief Gerald Smith.
The challenging dynamic about the Richmond mayoral contest is that the election procedures, unlike almost anything else in Virginia. To win City Hall, a candidate must win 5 of the city's 9 council districts, almost like a micro version of the Electoral College. If that fails to happen, the top 2 vote-getting candidates will take part in a runoff December 15th. That's more than a month after Election Day. Once again, 5 of 9 districts are required to win. But if neither is able to secure that many, the candidate with the most overall votes will be declared the winner.
I think he's lost a lot of support. Now, he may be able to pull it out because there's so many candidates, 5 candidates running. Do they split it up? He winds up winning 5 of the 9 wards. If I were a betting man, I would say that we go to a runoff.
Mayor LeVar Stoney wants 4 more years in office, but he's got 4 challengers running against him. Councilwoman Kim Gray, Alexis Rogers, Justin Griffin, and Tracy McLean. But experts, the polls, and donations all say it's really a 3-person race.
Jeffrey Gray. I'm Kimberly Gray's brother. We were really, really close. We kind of grew up as twins in a way.
Kim is my niece by marriage.
I used to be a constituent in her district, so as my council person.
She's actually a really funny person. Like, she has a very dry wit. She's very quick-witted.
And so because I realized that she had a voice and she had something to say, and it's not so much that she had something to say, but it was how she phrased it. I'm like, this girl she's gonna do something. She's gonna do big things. And I shared that with her. She said, Aunt Vanessa, no, I'm not. I'm just me. I said, there's more to you than you really know. As your mayor, education will be my top
Growing
priority.
up, our dad was politically active himself. He was politically conservative, very socially liberal, extremely socially liberal, but very conservative. And we'd grow up watching Firing Line and other news programs and things like that on Sundays, and he would talk with us about politics. And with Kim, I think that a lot of that has stuck with her as it has with me. I don't think her political aspirations started coming along until after she started having children and seeing them in school and being somewhat frustrated sometimes with the public school system.
I was tremendously overjoyed that she finally decided that, yes, she was going to run for mayor. She had tremendous support in her district, tremendous support outside of her district, people who said, listen, I need XYZ done. I'm going to call Kim and see if she can make it happen.
I can remember when Kim was working for one of the Richmond banks, and she was approached by a worker about having, being the product of a white mother and an African-American father. And she was tongue-lashed and was just treated terribly. And I can remember she wrote about that. And it was in one of the Richmond papers of how she was treated. And when I saw that, my heart broke. My heart just broke that she had to experience that. But I believe she took it and she ran with it. And she said then, I believe, I'm going to make a difference.
So Lex and I have, Alexis to you all, Lex to me. We have been friends since the 2nd grade, and we met in church.
I've known Alexis for years, since she was a little girl, and if I had to describe her in a few words, I'd say she is really bright. I mean, hyper intelligent.
She loves Beyonce, if y'all don't know that. And you probably won't win in a Beyonce argument with her. She had Beyonce birthday parties.
She's a foodie, right? I think we love to eat.
As far as commitment to Beyonce, you probably can't find anyone that's more committed than her.
Hi, I'm Alexis Rogers. I'm running for mayor.
I remember texting a few people the night that Lexi told me that she was gonna run, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna finally do it. And the first thing that people say is, tell me how to sign up and support, and tell me where I can give. I mean, it was just immediate, because I think anyone who has had any kind of personal contact or history, work-wise, public sector, private sector, believe that Alexis has something special that she can offer the world. And so I think that's why we're seeing the rise of her campaign and the rallying of the community around her to support, is because people who know her believe in what she stands for and believe that she's acting in the best interest of whatever group that she's designated to serve.
Alexis learned her own path in politics from experiencing the things that she knew was wrong, or that she knew needed to change, or that she knew needed to progress as she continued to grow and develop. There are some people that are mature and wise beyond their age, right? And she's mature and wise beyond her age. And again, with that thoughtful, skilled, and calculated responses that she always gives, that you don't usually get out of someone for her age, right? So she's taken the time, she sat under the tutelage of other people as well, to begin to develop the person that she is, the mature person that she is, wise beyond her age.
My parents had 9 children. I was the 4th. And LeVar's father was the 8th. And so I'm his older uncle, his oldest uncle living now.
I've always looked up to my brother. LeVar has always been amazing. We were always very competitive. I was definitely always the better athlete of the two. I want to say LeVar knew he wanted to be in politics about the age of 8. He started checking out books from the library and reading books about presidents, and then he got infatuated with JFK.
They used to form governments in the backyard. seriously. They used to form governments in the backyard and have elections. I was like, what are y'all doing? And LeVar would be the mayor at times, and Chris was his secretary or whatever. And they would have papers, and they were truly playing business.
During the pandemic, my top priorities as mayor have been protecting lives and supporting
Politics, I believe, in any major political office, it takes 2 terms in order for you to be effective. Because that first term, you're inheriting and you're answering for the other guy. And now, once you got everything in place, you've got your legs on you. So I think a second term for him, I think that's when you're really gonna see the beauty of what this kid could bring.
My brother's going through a very tough time, and even the little comments that I see now on Facebook and Instagram, it's flat out disrespectful at times, but it's the nature of the beast. It's what he signed up for, so I let him deal with it the way that he needs to deal with it. But most people couldn't handle that type of criticism. If I was a betting man, I would definitely bet on my brother. That is the horse that you want to bet on right now.
One of the most closely contested races this year is the battle for Virginia's 7th District, a Republican stronghold for years. In 2018, it was claimed by the Democrats, thanks to the blue wave and a strong campaign by Abigail Spanberger. Now this CIA officer turned Congresswoman is defending her seat against State Delegate Nick Freitas, a retired Green Beret seeking to make the district red again.
I just think he has a strength about him, and when he speaks, he says what he means, and he means what he says.
But she's already there, she's already doing the job, and just keep doing the job.
Both sides, nationally, not in Virginia, but the congressional committees on both sides, say that it is basically a toss-up district. The Democrats say that Spanberger has an edge, but they'll admit it's not a big edge. And the Republicans say they're on the verge of an upset with Freitas. Who knows? We'll see. It's certainly going to come down to a couple of percent. This is not a landslide district.
I met Abby prior to teaching her when I was chairman of this center. At the time it was called the Immersion Center. Abby took classes and immersed herself, not just as an immersion student in Spanish, but in learning French, and I can speak to that because she was in my French class. She wanted to know enough French so she could communicate with people, so she could read a novel. It just expanded her breadth of knowledge and her relationships with people.
It's funny when I look back on it, she was definitely someone who was not afraid to give feedback about a current situation and had a solution, very solution-minded, and was not afraid to talk to adults at a very young age.
I'm Abigail Spanberger. At CIA, we had one mission.
So I was just like Abby. I was an operations officer. So that is your basic spy going out and recruiting agents. Abby I've known a lot of tough guys, in my life between the military and the agency, men and women. And I've only seen people really achieve that level of success by being able to balance those two, by being able to be really authentic, right? Have the empathy, have the care, right? But then be able to fight, fight for the things that are important. And I think that's what made her such a success then. And that's what's made her really the best people, for her district in Virginia.
She's still Abby to me. And while it's Abigail Spanberger, she'll always be Abby.
You might be the person with the originalist of original insight on Nick Freitas. Were you surprised at all when he went into public service, when he went into a career in the military?
Not at all. He had talked about it since he was a little boy, and he's always been very patriotic. So Nick comes from a very multicultural family. We have family members that are African American, Guatemalan, Mexican, Taiwanese, all within our relatively immediate family. And Nick, having gone to other countries as a missionary, and especially with the group that we went with, there was tremendous teaching about different cultures and different people on this planet and how all people are beautiful and have something to offer. And Nick has always had a deep respect for that. And I think that's another one of those things that people maybe don't know about Nick.
During this pandemic, this is the time where the people...
It was pretty much unanimous that we all wanted him to run. He was the last one to make the decision. So I was ready. I wanted him to do it because I've known him since 9th grade. I know what he believes and I know his heart, and I know that if I want the perfect representative there, he's the guy I want there.
I think a lot of people have trouble with the fact that I'm a whiskey distiller, I grow hemp, right? And I officiated a same-sex wedding. So maybe I'm the sin congressman, right, for some people. But that is completely ridiculous, right? Because that's what a couple people called me.
In 2014, a Randolph-Macon professor named Dave Bratt sent shockwaves across the country when he defeated House Majority Leader Eric Cantor in the Republican primary.
I want to give thanks endlessly tonight. This is the happiest moment, obviously, of my life.
Earlier this year, something similar happened in Virginia's vast 5th district when another Republican took down sitting Congressman Denver Riggleman. Now, Democrats think that rural district could be theirs for the taking.
This is our call to order for the 5th Congressional District Convention.
The big news coming out of Virginia will be Dr. Cameron Webb, I think, will win the 5th Congressional District.
I honestly thought that to bring a CEO business mindset on how to grow the district would work, and it did. That's why I was so successful working across the aisle. It worked. What didn't work for me, as you can tell, is I have a really tough time speaking in political speech. And that's an issue.
I think that what they did to Congressman Denver Riggleman was awful. Denver Riggleman was the congressman in Virginia's 5th district. He, conservative, 90% reliable conservative vote. They threw him out, the Republican Party did, in a drive-by convention, not a primary. Here in Virginia, you allow the parties to do conventions or primaries. And they threw out a sitting U.S. congressman because he married one of his staff members who happens to be gay. And of course, that didn't sit well with the base of the party.
I was a little shocked by the reaction. I didn't think that people in his district would take that personally. It's certainly different than casting a vote on a controversial subject.
What happened in this drive-through convention was you had a disenfranchising of hundreds of thousands of voters to try to limit it to a very small group of ideologues. And the reason they did that is I was impossible to beat in a primary. This district is so diverse. You have Fauquier County, you have the suburbs of DC all the way to the North Carolina border. Having a primary allows for the best candidate. Conventions pick usually the worst candidate. It's a race to the bottom because everybody wants you to run as far to the fringes as you can, and I refuse to do that. I don't have to. I don't owe anybody anything. I was never in politics. I don't need the paychecks. And I think that really worries people because I'm impossible to leverage.
They throw him out. It then becomes a seat now where they put in this guy named Bob Good who's running, and he's very conservative, teaches at Liberty, right?
I'm Bob Good. I wrestled growing up and coached for 15 years. And in Congress, I'll take down the bad ideas from Pelosi and the liberals. Government-run healthcare, I'll pin that idea.
A Dr. Cameron Webb, who is from Charlottesville, young doctor, kind of superstar, he won his primary. I think there were like 6 people in that primary on the Democrat side. He won, and this is going to be interesting because Obama carried that district the first time.
I've seen Washington focus on partisan fights instead of working together to put people over party. I'm Cameron Webb, and I approve this message.
To me, it is one of the most outrageous things I've seen the Republican Party of Virginia do to itself, to be so ridiculous that 90% of the guy agreeing with you is not enough for you. And now you may flip the seat and hand it to a Democrat who you're going to agree with maybe 30% of the time is ridiculous to me.
I would be very comfortable if I was the nominee in this election. Cameron Webb's a strong candidate. I'd beat him. And if we had a primary, I would have beat Bob Good. And I think it's interesting to me that a lot of people said, "Are you sad about it?" No. I got to be a congressman for the 5th District of Virginia. I got to do incredible things. I mean, who gets to be a congressman, right? Who gets to be a CEO? Who gets to serve in multiple operations and serve our country? Who gets to be a published author? My book just came out. Who gets to do these things? You can do anything you want in America, and if something bad happens to you, just push forward, don't look back.
The people of that district feel that they want somebody that represents them. And enough people, I think, in that district felt, and I can only use the word betrayed because that's what some of them have said. I think they would say, hey, look, we're willing to stand on principle in believing that we can find someone else that will represent us.
How do you stop representing the district? You know, when you talk about my voting record, when you talk about $62 million for rural broadband, when you talk about the Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act, when you talk about the Hemp Opportunity Zone Act, when you talk about the deregulation of hemp for agriculture, when you talk about the money for the community bank loan ratios where we can actually have more people loaning money in rural areas, when you talk about my rural housing bills, that is crap. Why? The only reason I'm here, right, and I'm not running is because I officiated a same-sex wedding. That's what they're afraid to say, right? The reason I lost is because I thought we should decriminalize marijuana. The reason I lost is because I voted to keep pre-existing conditions.
That district has gone back and forth over the last decade before, and so I think that they would rather send the message that, hey, we would rather want someone who is consistent with our principles from the Republican Party.
They're out of step with the demographics, they're out of step with the times, and they don't have coalitions that they can put together, because in a tight race, whether it's Freitas, whether it's Taylor, or whether it's in this race with Good and Dr. Cameron, what's going to happen is you got to be able to pull some women, you got to be able to pull some minorities to help you get enough to get over the top. And that's where the Republicans are falling short time and time again.
I never needed the paycheck. So if you think I'm going to be angry, going back to hunting terrorists is what I'm going to do in January, or making whiskey, you have another thing coming. But I'm still going to look in the future for any opportunities I can to serve. If people want me, if they don't, that's fine too. You know, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, whether I'm in politics or not.
Will Republicans retain control of the United States Senate when all the votes have been tallied? It's been more than a decade since a Republican represented Virginia in that chamber. Ed Gillespie came close to returning one of those seats to the GOP when he nearly upset the heavily favored Mark Warner in 2014. Now, Senator Warner once again finds himself outpacing a Republican challenger in the polls and the coffers. But he's up against Daniel Gade, an Iraq war veteran who has overcome a number of obstacles to get here.
I'm a career servant. I joined the United States Army when I was 17 years old to support and defend the Constitution. Then I graduated from West Point and went off to do Army things. And when I was a captain, company commander in Iraq, I was wounded in combat twice and decorated for valor. The second time I was wounded, I lost my entire right leg at the hip. And so I had to remake myself. So when I say that you can trust me, when I say that I have your best interests at heart and that I will keep Virginia safe, you can trust that I know what I'm talking about.
You know, I spent over 20 years in business, creating jobs here in Virginia. I then went into public service because I wanted to get stuff done. And to do that, you got to work together.
Yeah, I think this race has essentially been written off. Daniel Gade has a great personal story, but by and large, he was unknown politically. He has not been supported that much.
Daniel Gade is the only candidate I can recall, in my experience, who, with zero name recognition, jumped into a statewide race against the political godfather of the state, who really hasn't jumped into any scandals. He really hasn't sullied his name over, a 25-year career in politics. I think Daniel Gade may have a future there. Daniel Gade has done well in a couple of debates.
PPE, masks, which, by the way, my opponent has called wearing masks a sign of tyranny. I think it's a sign of respect.
But what you've just heard is a bunch of nonsense, and I hope you'll fact check it.
I think we ought to protect a woman's right to choose and Roe v. Wade.
And career politicians, by the way, of both parties, including my party, have made mistakes on this, and it's time for new, fresh ideas on this.
Simply calling somebody a career politician over and over and over again doesn't change the facts. And making false accusations doesn't change the facts.
And yet these senators go to Washington, D.C., and they work 3 or 4 days a week, and they're struggling to do basic things like let the Judiciary Committee have their hearings.
He's got a great story, a war veteran, lost a leg.
My entire life, I've faced forks in the road. From West Point to leading men into combat to not letting my injuries define me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Gade. You know, and a lot of it's our military background as veterans. based on the fact of where he came from, the sacrifices he made for this country. That man is fearless.
When Mark Warner ran the last time against the Republican challenger, Ed Gillespie, he narrowly won. But Virginia was then a purple state. Virginia is now a blue state, and it's solidly blue. And the demographics no longer work for Republicans, particularly excessively conservative Republicans who really are playing to that Trump base, which in the Commonwealth is not a big base. He'll get about 40+% of the vote on a good day. And that's about where Republicans top out in statewide races.
Left and right, black and white, it seems like the majority of Virginians and other Americans are ready for 2020 to be put in the rearview mirror. But what does the road ahead look like? Politics feels less civil, more contentious than ever. But is a return to compromise and bipartisanship around the corner? And what will it take to get there?
We can't afford to go into enclaves. It's not a matter of your caucus versus this group or that group or the other. In the absence of us recognizing that, oh, you win some, I win some. Let's make it so the people win.
But we have to do that with logic and with policy, not with dehumanizing others. And I think a lot of that has to do with, let's get serious about service rather than just being a careerist. And I think if we go back to service over making money, I think we can fix a lot of problems that way. Is it going to happen? Doubt it, but I'm going to try.
There'll always be differences. You'll never have people coming together, holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But you can at least get a reasonable compromise about the big, important crises.
Republicans, Democrats, people who have money, people who don't have money, I mean, that we've got a lot of work to do in this community to try to get back to even where we were 10 months ago. And I'm hopeful that we can just get through this election cycle and figure out a path forward. It's eluding me at the moment. I'm trying to find that.
My hope is that we can look beyond just who is elected into the presidency and find ways for us to work together as a nation. I believe it is true, as we say, we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, let's see what the world looks like on November 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th.